Hi, this is Rick Harsh. This is my booktube, um, and ironically, um, as there's a crow on my head, this is my balcony, and the crow came from outside the balcony, the wild, I suppose, even though it's the city. Um, Showed up, and he's on my head, and I started this video. I lost it. I don't know where it went. Um, That was about 5 hours ago. And the irony of it is that my video is going to be on a new thought I've had about magical realism. And, if you know Gabriel Garcia Marquez, you probably associate magical realism with 100 Years of Solitude more than any other book. But also, it's been considered a movement, a tendency, whatever, but a Latin American phenomenon primarily. I think that Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children was considered another great example of magical realism. And I think much of what I have to say might apply as well to India, although India is not as associated with magical realism as Latin America. Now, the interesting thing about Gabriel Garcia Marquez is when he was interviewed once about this, about magical realism, he said something along the lines of, it's really rather mundane. That things happen in daily life that are really strange, inexplicable. He didn't say there are ghosts or or flying babies or anything like that. He gave a couple of examples of things that were really strange, but I think we all can do that. Although I've never had a crow come and sit on my head, and the timing of it is fortuitous, I suppose. What do you think? I've named him Gramsci because, this area used to be heavily fascist, and my balcony tries to remain strictly anti-fascist. So I've let him know that he's welcome here anytime. And maybe that was a mistake because it's been over 5 hours, I think. And if I don't shut the door to the balcony, he'll follow me anywhere into the house. Or she. I don't know how to sex a crow or have sex with a crow. I've done neither. But here. Okay, good. I started having these thoughts about magical realism that I'm going to some degree try to explore. While reading this book by a German, Alfred Dublin, this year his book, it's called The Land Without Death, the Amazonas Trilogy. Gramsci just flew to the central table on the balcony. There, see? You're on camera. Say something to the people. Okay, well, he's very curious. He's also, he's not clumsy, but a bird's feet are not meant to land on, say, a coffee cup. He broke one, and now I'm being very careful about the second one. Well, there was something very striking that I read in this book, and it was on page 190, I believe, and it's not a unique thought. It's along the lines of walk a mile in my moccasins, or walk a mile in his or her moccasins. moccasins are appropriate because Indians come up in my thinking about the phenomenon I want to discuss. He said, as a branding iron burns the skin and causes blood to flow, so they came into this happy land, a few hundred men, outcasts from savage Europe. The natives saw their ruin draw near. They could not name it, but when it arrived, they had to flee or die. Ahead of the white horde, thousands of dark men, women, and children fled in a mile-wide stream, leaving behind homes, fields, animals. He's talking about one specific place here. And then 10 pages later, expanding on this theme, he says, the crimes, the lies were without precedent. A particular country was created for those ravening beasts on the other side of the ocean. A wide sea was placed around it to protect peaceful beings from them. Their demonic spirit gave them strength enough to break through the barrier. They found their way to us and will yet find other peoples. They are evil demons, yes indeed. No one has weapons to oppose them. Well, I think you get the idea. But this is something that's beginning in more or less the earliest part of the 16th century, and also happening at the same time in India with the Portuguese, where they were Vasco da Gama was a man of murderous cruelty, and I'm always tempted to go into specifics, but I'll spare anybody that because I probably have done it here more than once. But what this makes me think about is the difference between South America and most of North America. Most of North America, the whites came and they were confronted by native people, and they more or less just got rid of them, shunted them aside when they weren't killing them, and they did not mix. Over time, in South America, they mixed a great deal, also in Mexico. So, what I believe is that this bizarre event that becomes representative of the vision of people in South America filters down through generations, and nothing can be seen any longer as impossible. What could be more bizarre than to be living in the jungle, the rather inhospitable jungle that you've learned over generations to live with in peace. You know, the river will still flood and take people. The crocodile, the jaguar will still take people. And Gramsci, you've been eating some weird shit. Yeah. So now don't go after my nipple. Okay, he's going after a button. That's good. It's a little too warm to wear a button-down shirt here on the balcony. Anyway, as Gramsci would agree, in the United States, the people who are writing today, primarily, although by now women and black people can write and be published, very few Native Americans are known in literature, and that of course, we don't really have to go into that much to explain the lack of assimilation. Now, by assimilation, I don't mean true and happy assimilation, because, as you know, black people never did assimilate well in the United States. They weren't allowed to, and the effect of that is when they fought for civil rights and were given the right of equality, they were unable to act out that right because they had become a permanent underclass, as seen by the ghettos in every American city. And the opportunities for black people were never the same. So what that means is there's a separate literature, a literature from a very different cultural background and history from that of white North Americans, which is still a rather peculiarly Puritan and puritanical predominantly literature. I mean, of course, I'm not talking about the great works of what are called various things like maximalists and postmodernists to modernists. Of course, there have been a great number of people since Joyce who have written against the grain, who have been inspired by the bubbling Lavaic evil of their origins to turn inspired and write against what they were born to be. But in Latin America, I think there was already within writers, and I don't know a lot of the history of Latin American literature because I've read mostly 20th century literature, but Machado de Assis was already, I would say, a precursor, if not a magical realist, a precursor to the movement. But I think that it's more a way of seeing the world that makes sense. And when Dublin writes, he captures it very well. What is not possible when you can have such a bizarre and dark event as the entrance into your happy life of outcasts from savage Europe. The outcasts from savage Europe in North America were savage Europeans. They weren't really outcasts, and they maintained their separation. And so naturally, the predominant cultural view is a more limited cultural view. This is perilously close to intellectual history, which is something that I find fascinating but impossible to grasp and inflict on people. So I will stop inflicting it on you. But this is my booktube for the day, and Gramsci likes it, and I hope you like it as well. Thank you.